and his other 2 battle buddies were killed in the altercation, if I'm not correct.
And he participated in the ramp ceremony, and only then afterwards went to the medic and was like, I need to be seen. Can I get checked out? And they realized like he had a broken back this entire time. Like, we're talking about detached retina, broken eardrums, concussed. And concussions are nothing to screw around about with either. And then on top of that, broken back. And you just can't, like I said, you can't listen to that and not think that is heroism at its peak. You know? And so he's home, and, you know, we're at a point now where when I got the news that he passed away, it was just like, something just washed over me. It was just like, no, that doesn't make sense, because it just doesn't make sense in my mind. And that's what happened. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to really feel like, okay, like we've got a chance here. We're going to fight for him, and just being excited to for him to see the shirts and stuff, and to now have to carry on this for him, without his presence here. It's a little disheartening, but it doesn't stop the fight. It doesn't stop our goal or anything like that. If anything, we're pushing harder now.
Yeah, and rightly so. And you know, this speaks to just a broader cultural issue here in Canada, especially with the military. It's just our inability to award soldiers that are deserving of awards, anything. And you know, just case in point, yes, he got awarded, the second highest medal for bravery in Canada. But you know, I'll post the actual description of what he did here in the show notes. It's incredible, and to think that you wouldn't get a VC, because typically most individuals have gotten VCs it was posthumously, because the level of warfare that they were fighting, they just succumbed to the battle. But in this case, Jess actually survived, which was impressive just in and of itself, because he, from what I can read, was just a one-man killing machine, right? So when I was overseas, there was a similar-ish incident with a Gurkha soldier repelling an entire Taliban attack on his OP. And he went as far as to, well, he had no more ammunition, so he started beating them to death with his tripod. I heard that story. I'm like, that guy is going to get a Victoria Cross. But he didn't. And as far as I can tell, it still hasn't happened. And I think it's because of what you were saying before, especially even the British. Like, we inherited the British system. They're not British. And I think that's one of the things that holds it back. But I think it was as of 2008, we established our own Canadian Victoria Cross. So it was no longer the old British Victoria Cross. So it didn't have to go to the King or the Queen. But since then, I think we've been stuck at 99 recipients of the Victoria Cross, and we've yet to have that 100th. And although it's just a number, there is some significance to, like, the 100th person that has received it in Canada would be a pretty momentous thing in my opinion. Now, Jess didn't seem like the individual that would want the attention. He seemed humble, like you wouldn't believe, like most Canadian Armed Forces soldiers. But to signify to the country, like, hey, we're recognizing this incredible human being for what he did for the country, is important for the soul of our country. Because this is my take. All parties here, political parties, want to forget that we fought. I think that's the general consensus. What we did over there is a footnote in our history. And let's move on here. We'll give you some benefits, and why don't you just shut up and get on with it. And the reason why I think that is because they realized it was a endeavor in futility, because we didn't have a mission. We didn't have things set up properly. We haven't been able to take care of our own. We clearly have a massive, massive inability to field a military right now. We don't fund it. And yet we have this, longest war in Canadian history just relegated to, and we lost, let's be honest. So let's just put it over into the dustbin of history. And so therefore, my take is, awarding somebody like Jess or anybody else the VC would bring that back into to the collective consciousness of Canadians. And I don't think there is a political will to do that. Curious to see, like, what do you think about that? You think that might be like, there's two things that are competing here. It could be that it's just the laziness factor, like, oh, I don't want to do more work, like, I'm going to go back 100 years and look at all these files. And then there's a political incentive not to, because then it brings up all the stuff that happened during Afghanistan, and also gives veterans a platform as well, and starts a conversation that may be a little bit uncomfortable for a lot of us here in Canada and for political institutions. I'm just curious to think, like, do you have anything to say on that? I know you got to walk a line because you still are a member of the CAF, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely got to toe the line. Okay, so the best way that I can put it would be it's not even called a war anymore. It's called the conflict in Afghanistan.
Of course.
And I think that right there already takes away from validating the experiences, such as yourself and everyone else and my friends that were all over there. It's kind of insulting. The other thing is, when that was going on, Canada rallied behind itself. Canada rallied behind all the boys and girls that were over there. We all had a purpose. Tim Hortons, for goodness sake, was giving out the hats with, like, the TANCAD pad. Like, we had purpose. We had something to get behind. We had people to support. And you're right. None of that's happening now at all. It's extremely discouraging. And it does lead to opening up uncomfortable conversations. Absolutely. I mean, there were uncomfortable conversations even when we were over there. I remember my friends in 2008 were part of a panel, and there was protesters outside. And they were being asked hard questions about, like, oh, should you really be over there and everything like that. I remember that vividly in Windsor. But still, we're at a point where I think regardless of the situation, the uncomfortable conversations are still going to happen anyways. And they are happening anyways. And it's just, we need to continue having those. But the problem is we can't just leave it up to you guys to have those conversations, because you guys are now out. We can't fix any problems if we don't start doing the work within. And that's where, like, when we said towing the line is a little bit difficult, because there's so many things that I would like to say about that, but almost feel handcuffed, like I can't, even though the things that I would like to share and talk about as other serving members would as well would only be beneficial and help.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the best way that I can answer that. And I apologize because I know it's not directly answering it. It's kind of skirting it, and I hate when people do that. But
you did a much better job than any of our politicians. Let's just put it that way.